we would love to know, what trade shows are you attending this year? We have quite a diverse mix of people and properties on the webinar today. So we just love to see what's working for people. And maybe you can just put it in the chat box either, Mark, that might be easiest, so that we can capture that and then you can share that with us. We have people from both continents, or a few different continents actually, so it will be great to see what's working for people. There's a big one on in the UK today, Confex, and so we're missing some of our UK colleagues. What we want to cover today is effective strategies to walk away with more business opportunities. We really want to make sure that everybody's walking away with strategies to walk away with more business opportunities. Okay, you're making a big investment to attend these shows, and we want to make sure there's an ROI for you. Importantly, how to stand out and sound different, because the buyers are meeting with hundreds of people at these shows. So it's important to be able to stand out. And I want to share with you how Dawn got 20 appointments for a big European show by just doing something a little bit different and key also with her preparation for the show. And I want to walk you through a few tips to prepare what you can do now, because it's not about just paying the money and showing up. There's a lot to do in advance that will really have a key part to play in the amount of leads that you generate and the amount of meaningful contacts that you make. And of course, we welcome questions. We had fantastic participation on our last webinar, and we'd love to make this as relevant as possible. You're investing an hour of your time here, guys, and we want to make sure that that's a productive use of your time. So make it as personalized to your to what you need as possible. The most powerful skill that you can develop is to make people interested in you. Dove Gordon is a great marketing mentor of mine, and I think this is really pertinent when attending shows, because potential buyers are speaking with so many people. You really need not just to get their attention, but to make them interested in you. And as I share some of what I do in terms of teaching teams how to win and convert more leads, what a key part to that is always getting a yes at each step and making the client want to get to the next step of their buying process with you. What we'd also love to know, guys, is what are your challenges in the conference meeting incentive and event market right now? Is there anything that, you know, is really bothering you, or you know, keeps you awake at night? Or if you had the opportunity to fix that, what would that be? And, you know, don't be shy, put it in the chat box there, because that will help us to develop more meaningful education sessions for you also. Because a big problem in the industry that I'm seeing right now is that the client is no longer believing these traditional sales and marketing messages. So we really must create more authentic and believable material and pitches, and just really ways to talk about our business, because it's all about being of value to the client and knowing and understanding what's going on in their world, so that they want to do business with you, they want to trust you, and building these very important trusting relationships with them. So what is one quick thing that you can do to prepare for these shows that is, as I say, authentic and believable? It's your client testimonials, and make sure to be bringing relevant testimonials to the conference and event market with you, and preparing them in advance, and of course getting your clients permission to share them, because it's not about how you want to sell, it's about how the planner wants to buy. They have changed the way that they buy, but have you or your team changed the way that you sell? And as you get to know me a little bit more, it's key about, to get a yes at each step and build trust as you go along with the client. Because has it ever happened that you've got, to the end of the sale and you're really just waiting for that yes, and expecting an email, and you're very confident that you've won the piece of business, and then you get a phone call or an email to say no, they're not going with you, they're going with your competitor, and you're devastated, right? So what I found from being in the role in teaching for the last number of years, and also from being on the client side, is that you lost the business a lot of the time at the very beginning because you didn't get a yes. We didn't build enough trust and confidence with the client right at the very beginning. And of course, they can lead you on to the end, but something just didn't sit right at the beginning. And that's when you really need to be standing out, sounding different, using the right sales tools, and of course, preparing the right kind of proposals. So to bring in a little bit of biology to this, guys, it is a fact. The part of the brain that makes a decision doesn't understand price or facts. It only understands how you make it feel. And a lot of salespeople will tell me in my workshops that they're losing business because of price, because of rate. And a lot of pitches are made up of facts and statistics and that kind of stuff. But what we want to do, guys, is really develop the skill of being able to tap into the emotions that are behind the sale and have that emotional impact on a client. And from my 20 years in the industry, from having been on the hotel side, mainly working in America and then in Ireland for a few short years, and being then developed out my business to being an agent and working a lot more closely with corporates and associations, and writing a book, this brought my process, my steps to win, as I call it, out of me. And at a trade show, we have the opportunity to really fast forward some of these areas here, and go straight through yes to proposal. But we want to make sure that we're still building the right kind of connection, having the right emotional impact on the client at the very beginning of their decision-making process. And I'll share some tips on how to stand out and sound different as we go through. But here is a client, here is a lady whose team of 25 people, being an agency in Dubai, convert and work on millions worth of business every year. And the steps, she said, just really make sense. They do, of course, convert business, but it's about the client journey and making the client journey that much better. So another quick question, guys. What are your expectations from attending events? Do you have an idea of what are the monetary expectations that you'd love to walk away with? Do you have an idea of number of leads or number of meaningful connections? And I ask this because it's important to have the right mindset when preparing and attending these trade shows. And I asked this at a webinar that I did last year for people attending the IMEX webinars. And one guy who, it was his first time to attend, but he wanted to walk away with having made 70 meaningful connections. And of course, it's very unrealistic. And if you are attending shows with such massive expectations, you will be disappointed because you can't make 70 meaningful connections at a show. I would urge definitely to pull that back a little bit, and let's perhaps talk about this. So Mark, I'm not sure if you're seeing anything yet in the chat box yet there, but are people going to IMEX, IBTM? There's a lot of more regional events that people can be attending. What are we seeing that's coming up there?
Okay, Ciara. Well, we've got a number of exhibitors in the room today, so that's a good news. They're eagerly wanting to get some great tips. Everything from IMEX in Frankfurt, IBTM in Europe, and of course IBTM Americas. We know that IMEX as well. Babette is at well, IMEX Frankfurt, IMEX USA, IBTM. M&I Forum, so Babette's a real veteran out there, and also a couple of other regional ones as well, like Confec Red, the Meetings Show, Break the Ice Forum. So a number there, and in link to your question around what are your expectations and what are the challenges that you face. Emily recently just added to the text box that her big headache is not getting enough qualified appointments, so not meeting her own expectations, and that creates a nightmare around trade shows for her, just in her personal experience. So I'm sure that's something that you're going to be addressing in the coming 45 minutes.
Yeah, qualified appointments is a key area. And I know, when I understand the pressures that we can be on from my hotel sales days. I had one particularly eager general manager, Mike Casey, if anybody knows him. But anytime I came back from a trade show, he'd come straight in and say, "How many leads did you get, Ciara?" And the pressure, a lot of the time you don't necessarily come back with a lot of leads, but it's about the connections that you made and the number of appointments that you have got for future connections, that somebody wants to have a more in-depth conversation with you after the show. Okay, and that is a key message that I'd like to portray today, is to make sure that you're going in there with an expectation of getting a second meeting, because that is a lot more powerful than some buyers, some planners might be just sharing a lead that they're giving out to 50 other venues that particular day. You ideally want to make the kind of impression that you want to get a second meeting. And I make the analogy of looking at it as a date. And if you're going on a first date with somebody and you're spending so much of your time talking about yourself, um, and not perhaps showing enough interest and asking enough questions of the other person, do they want to go on a second date with you? More than likely not, right? And we kind of treat this in a little bit in the same way when we're at the very early stages of a buying and selling relationship. And let's take a look at this, guys. I'll share some of my killer questions later, but is this realistic that you go in there, you're going to ask killer questions, that you're going to walk away with 10 leads for future business, and of course follow up with everybody within 1 week of the event? That is a really big expectation. That's a big goal. That's a really big objective to have. But is it achievable, guys? Or is this a little bit more achievable, that you set up calendar appointments with 10 potential leads, that you are going to follow up and have phone conversations or in-person conversations with them within the next few weeks? I would say that this is a more realistic objective to have, and a more achievable. And we want to make sure that we're going into these shows with the right mindset. I see a lot of people attend these shows, maybe not put enough preparation into them. They're intensely for 3 days. There can be exhausting shows, and then saying, "Oh, I really didn't get enough leads," and deciding not to go next year. People are in it for the long run in this business. They want to see consistency. They want to meet you a few times, perhaps, before they are ready to trust you and take that step and invite you into their world of either introducing you to their direct clients, giving you leads, or working directly with you to run their business. And some of you might know Eduardo Chaillo. He is the global general manager of Maritz Travel. And I've interviewed him extensively for different parts of my book and different parts of my sales training modules. But he said a key reason why people attend these shows is to research. And they want to find the relationships that they need or start the relationships that they need before they actually need them, so that if a piece of business for an event comes across their desk, they can say, oh, you know what, I met such a person, I need to call them, this would be perfect for their particular venue. Okay, and that's a key expectation for you to have when attending these events. You're starting the relationship, guys. You're not necessarily there to sell and walk out with 10 leads, because building trust and confidence at the right level, at the right pace in this industry is key. People do business with people that they know, like, and trust. And on any given day, we are bombarded with information and the equivalent of 174 papers of data a day. Okay, and that's massive. That is overwhelming when you think of the amount of messages that you are subjected to, even in your daily life. So, can you imagine a planner or an agent and they're walking around these shows and the constant visuals, the constant noise, and they're in maybe 30 different appointments also, especially if they're hosted buyers. And so they're hearing constantly, everybody wants to tell them, oh, look at my beautiful photographs. Look at my wonderful destination. Look at my amazing property. But it's about really standing out, getting their interest, making that connection so that they'll say to you, do you know what? I'd love to have further conversation with you. Let's set up an appointment to speak in depth so that you can get at least an hour's conversation with them in a week or two. Okay, and that worked for Blair here. She asked the right kind of questions. She didn't straight away take out her presentation, and she got the right kind of connection with clients who thanked her and were surprised and thanked her for being interested in them. And trust, it's about building community. And you know what it's like to be a member of community with your membership of IAC and all of the wonderful advantages that that brings. But it's the same with sales, guys. It's about building trust and building the right kind of connections, because social media and social selling has dramatically changed our expectations of how we want to be sold to. And if I was to say to you guys, oh, you have an appointment with, a salesperson coming in this evening at 4 o'clock. You know, what is your first thought? You know, a lot of people's like, oh, no, I don't want to listen to a salesperson. I don't want to listen to a pitch. And your client can be thinking that. So it's about finding that connection, building that right trust to attract more of these quality appointments that are, people that are yours to convert. So a key objective from these events is to build better business relationships. And we look at a few ways to do that. And one is to really submerge yourself in the client's world and know and understand what are their problems and what are you hearing out there from clients right now. Okay, everybody would probably say budget. Yes, that is key, but what else are we hearing? What's going on out there? We have people from America, France, Brussels, Germany, other parts of mainland Europe. What are you hearing? What is key? What's big on planners' minds right now? Just briefly put it in the chat box there. Because what we want to do is make sure that we're not building a leaky sales funnel, which can very easily happen in our daily lives, but especially at these shows. And we're making the connections that just aren't going to be a right fit and perhaps will end up wasting your time. So the big opportunity at these shows is to attract more of the right kind of leads, because the more of the right kind of leads we put into our sales funnel, the more profitable business that comes out of it. And I make this suggestion to you guys. Let's look at our lingo and how we are talking about events about the industry, about your property? And are we talking about a return on investment versus cost and price and budget? Okay. And it's a key area for you to get your head around also. Meeting design. Mark, I could turn it over to you right now and talk all about meeting design, right? And the meeting space of the future. But are we using that knowledge and all of that fabulous research that IACC has put together in speaking with hundreds of different planners out there? Are we looking at meeting design versus a conference room that fits 300 people? You know, you see the key difference there, right, Mark?
Absolutely, and it's the experiences that you create that are absolutely unique to your property that the meeting planners are hungry to hear about. And they don't, you're right, they don't want to hear about capacities of a room, and they've got past that in having the discussion. They're looking about how you're going to create the magic that's going to make them look great and make their delegates feel like they're having a truly memorable experience. So I couldn't agree with you more. And Ciara, just while I got a pause in your breath for a moment there, something that Jean mentioned as well recently in her chat box session was, as well as it's about how, looking at how you have that conversation and the expectation around the number of meaningful conversations that you have with meeting planners. It's also stepping back. Jean reminds us that there's more shows, there's more trade shows and events than there is time in the day and budget in the marketing and sales budget. So one of the questions is, how do we select the best show to attend when we're conference center operators looking for that meeting planner that's the small to mid-size conference, not the convention center meeting planner? How do we pick the right ones to invest our valuable time and money in? And I'm sure you'll give some tips along the way as well on that one. But thank you, Jean, for the question. It's a great question.
Yeah, and key to that will be writing the descriptions and making sure that you're positioned as that. Because a lot of the time, I'll see if I go to a website, oh, we're perfect for any type of event from 2 to, 300, but there's a big gap there. And the more specific we are in talking about perhaps some of the problems that clients have and saying, look, if you have this, you want to address this with your event, then we're the people to speak to. But there's a whole session that I can do on that, Mark, and it is really key when we are at these trade shows to listen to the client. What are they saying? Writing it down and observing their language so that we can ensure to weave that into our conversations and be as relevant as possible to them so they can say, yeah, do you know what? These guys get it. But writing our descriptions and how we're presented on the website of these particular events is a key part to helping them to put up their hand and select you and say, yeah, these guys, this is what I'm liking this. These guys, I can connect to them. It's making sense. I'm liking this. I'm going to, take my time to set up an appointment with them. And I'll share with you how Dawn did a lot of that. Okay. Again, questions, keep them coming, guys. So we're going to look now, preparing for the event, then what to do during the event, and of course, what to do after the event. You can, of course, ask for a list of attendees, and then it is up to you to do the research, to look at what particular events they are holding. What is the size of the event? Where are they holding it? Is it city centre only, or are they regional? So that you can make some assumptions and see if that your venue, your destination would be a right fit for them. Know who is on that list that you want to meet. That is up to you to figure that out in terms of your research, and of course connect with them before the event. A lot of people just leave it up to waiting to meet them at the time and hoping that they turn up, but there's a lot that you can do beforehand, and again I'll share what Dawn did in that regard. Now a lot of the time planners trade show planners are very happy to share in advance that with IMEX and with IBTM, they make it easy because you have, all of this database that you can go through beforehand and connect out and send your emails and all of that. But, a lot of the time names and companies will be shared. Perhaps definitely make sure to ask before legislation changes in Europe over this GDPR. But, connect and ask them. They're not perhaps been asked for that, and a lot are happy to do that. So you can do your research and know what is helping. In terms of descriptions, guys, if you're using common language, I shared a lot of that common language in the webinar last month, but convenient located, memorable experience, when you're founded, how old you are, you're the third largest hotel in whatever area, perhaps you're family owned, it's a large modern multi-purpose event venue in the center of. This is very common language used in our industry, and it's not, again, going to help you to stand out. What you want to get into here, guys, is how does being a family-owned company really help you? How is the multi-purpose, venue, how does that actually help them to run a better event, to achieve the kind of results that they want to achieve from holding their event at your specific venue? So look at your language and try to avoid sounding like the person next door. The better quality questions that you ask, the better quality answers we're going to get, guys. And Michael here prepared his team. We did a number of different sessions together, and converted a piece of business worth 250,000 to the hotel because the team knew the kind of questions that were really going to uncover the emotions and figure out what was going to help the buyer to say yes to their specific property. And I suggest, guys, that we start talking about building advocates and partners as opposed to prospects, and really figuring out who are our partners. And that's a key language. I know that's a key area that IACC are very much developing, and you have the positioning to do that, but it's about building these advocates and it's about building prospects. And let's look at some of the questions that we can ask. Now, we have some fabulous people on the line, Mark, and I would love it if everybody shared a question, a key question that they like to ask at these shows that really helps to open up the conversation, and yes, it is about getting away from just the dates, rates, and space conversation. Those kind of conversations are only going to lead to you competing based on price. So perhaps, we have some great knowledge on the webinar. Perhaps everybody can share a question that they ask that does help them to get to that next level with a potential client. Okay, so
Well, I'll be keeping my eyes open on the text box, on the chat box, for any of those great questions coming in, Ciara, and I'll share them along the way. So yeah, please do share away. I'm sure there's some great examples there of how we can open up the discussion on the trade show floor in those opening questions.
Yeah, and let's make sure to copy and paste and keep them for me also, Mark. So 2 questions, guys, that are key to ask. What are the challenges in their role or in their industry right now? We want to uncover what their problems are, what's keeping them awake at night. There could be really big stuff going on in their company, in their industry right now that's going to open up all these other events that they're going to have to organize. So you want to find out about that, get them talking. That is the key here, guys. Get them talking. If you're doing all the talking, stop and make sure that you are asking them. They're going to remember you getting them talking and getting them engaged. And of course, a key one is, why is the event being organized? Okay. You need to know that in order to be able to help them, in order to be able to come up with solutions, in order to be able to help them achieve the objectives that they need to achieve. And it's really key to be asking that.
Ciara,
Yeah.
Oh, if I may, I'd just like to make a point because on your last slide you talk about what are the challenges in their role and their industry, and one of the really important lessons I learned early on in my time at trade shows was the how valuable it is to not you come off the trade show floor and go into the educational sessions, because that's where you'll hear about what are keeping meeting planners up at night, and it gives you such valuable content to be able to turn that into a positive. And I give you an example. When I was at one of my last events, all I was hearing about in the educational sessions was meeting planners telling us about their challenges with dietary requirements, the explosion of requests for allergies, different dietary requirements, how planners were really struggling with that. That gave me the perfect opportunity to then tailor my conversation on the trade show floor to what a great approach to dealing with allergens and global dining requirements and dietary requirements my property had. So just a real quick tip there: get into the educational sessions, listen to what the challenges are, and you'll definitely be able to turn that to your advantage, I'm sure.
Absolutely, that is massive, and that's definitely one of the points that I'll be sharing. I also advise guys, when you're attending, maybe you're just going to a networking show, maybe you're going to a Chamber of Commerce event, a breakfast briefing, something like that. It's not a trade show scenario, but you'll be asked the usual questions like, what do you do? So you could turn around and say, well, I'm a sales manager at X venue, or you could turn around and say, well, I helped a meeting planner increase their satisfaction score by 10% last week. And a planner is definitely going to want to know more, right? You want to say something that's interesting enough that they'll say, oh, tell me more about that. So there's a lot of drinks receptions and other events around these shows. So make sure that you have prepared some really great answers so that you can just weave in a nice subtle way something that's really interesting about your property, about your role, about your team, about your destination, whatever it may be, so that they will say, oh, I like that. Tell me a little bit more. And then you've got the conversation started, guys. So, look at what other events have they run. Check them out on social media, and be able to drop that into the conversation, be able to talk about that. They do want to see that you have prepared for this, because that will say so much about how you are going to handle their event if they get to the next step with you. And prepare this social proof, this testimonials that I spoke about, because it's going to be 10 times more believable it coming from somebody else, one of your clients, one of your guests, one of your attendees or delegates, as opposed to you just saying it. Okay. And I like to prepare testimonials with photographs of the person, so again, they can identify with that person. And in a lot of my trainings, there's a very specific way to ask for really great testimonials, apart from, oh, the food was wonderful, everybody was so nice. Lots of people have those kind of testimonials, but it's about getting a kind of a different level of testimonial, and it's key the way you ask for that. Small little tip about the name badge. A lot of the shows, unfortunately, the organizers put your name really small writing, and they give you something that, with women, it's going to be hanging around your chest area, and you don't want people looking at your chest area to try and figure out what your name is, right? Or down at your belly. So I suggest make it big, make your own one, put your first name big. And also what you will find is that this helps people to say hello to you. So they might have met you last year, they might have met you 6 months ago, and they're trying to think, oh, what's her name? What's her name? And they're shy to walk up to you because they can't remember what it is. But if you're making it easy for people to approach you because you have your name big and bold up on your shoulder, up on the top right hand of your shoulder, guys, that's where it's easiest for people to see your name. And automatically, when they're going to shake your hand, their eye level will go to that, so they can see it and be comfortable for them. So it's a small little tweak to make, but it makes a really big difference. And of course, know their industry lingo. Mark, you know yourself that there's a big difference in the way people in the financial industry will talk about their events versus the medical industry. We're talking about abstracts in the medical industry, as opposed to trade shows and stands and that kind of stuff, and versus the tech industry or the education industry. So be able to drop in some of their specific industry lingo so that they can see, do you know what, these guys get me, they understand me. So if the questions are coming in, Mark, just let me know, otherwise I'll keep going. I'd love to share with you guys to show a little bit of the personality of your business, of your property. And these are two wonderful people who attended one of my webinars last year. And they came the whole way from Japan to IMEX America, or IMEX Frankfurt. And believe it or not, they were the only people from Japan who were on the Japanese trade show stand that dressed in kimonos. Okay. And they got the attention. They had people walk up to them. Can you imagine if you're a planner and you're walking past and you see people traditionally dressed who look like they're from Japan versus somebody in a black suit? Are you going to walk up to them if you're considering going to Japan or you're a little bit curious? Absolutely. They had their most successful trade show because they brought a little bit of their country and their personality to it. So, make sure you bring plenty of business cards with you with a photograph on it, guys. Ideally with a photograph, because they're meeting a lot of people and it really helps them. Dress with something that distinguishes you. Consider color. Black and gray is the most common color perhaps in our industry, but liven it up a little bit perhaps. I like to wear a little flower, something that people can just, it starts a conversation. People come up and say, oh, I really like that flower, or it just makes me more approachable. And again, people are looking for that. Most people are a little bit shy, and you have to make it easy for them to start a conversation and approach you. Now, Dawn is from a Marriott property that is on, it's Linkville Park. They're on a race course. And she attended one of my webinars and took every tip to heart and implemented them. So she wore a beautiful little hat that you would wear to the races. Now, yes, this is very, specific to England or Ireland, the tradition of going to the races. But you can adapt this to your property or your where you're from or your destination, guys. She had a lot of people walk in, just off the trade show floor and just comment on her hat and say, I'd love to know where you're from. Tell me about your property. And she was thrilled and delighted. She had permission, of course, then to talk and engage with them and tell them about her fabulous property and how she can make an experience very different to them by incorporating the race course and all of that. And I asked Dawn, it actually mushroomed a little bit from there, Mark, because she applied my tips to the next show that she went to, which was IBTM World. And the organizers of Visit England noticed the attention that she was getting from having dressed according to going to the races. So they decided to make it a theme for the whole of the stand for the next show. So they all dressed in some lovely little, race style outfit. And Visit England won Best Stand. They got a lot more publicity. They were getting a lot more tweets. They made a fun thing about it at their stand. And it really helped them to stand out and, of course, attract a lot more people to their show. And connect with people beforehand. Use LinkedIn, use Twitter, start and join in the conversation. Now, Dawn told me that she got 20 appointments for her last event, which was great. And they were qualified. I think it was at Emma that was expressing her frustration at not enough qualified appointments. She connected with people beforehand. She invited them on LinkedIn, said, I noticed that you're going to X show. I'd love to connect with you. She got a personal note back. So that's key, guys, not just to send the generic invitation through LinkedIn, write a personal note. She got a personal note back from them. She got 20 qualified appointments, which she had never got before going into the show. And of course, then standing out, it helped her to get a few more at the show. So, they're small tips, guys, but they have a really big impact. I suggest also stand outside your stand, pretend that you are in your property. You don't stand behind the reception desk when you're waiting to greet somebody for a show around. Be like at the front door, be right outside. Don't be on your phone. Just be conscious of phone activity. I know it's the most natural thing in the world to be connected with the office and be checking your email when you have a little bit of downtime, but it puts planners off. They're not going to stop and just call into you if they see your head down and you're engaged elsewhere. Walk away from the stand for 5 minutes or 10 minutes to check your email. Stay within viewing distance of the stand if you're afraid you're going to miss somebody, but it is much better to just walk away so people aren't seeing you. Just head down. I've seen too many salespeople miss opportunities that way. Join in the conversation when you're at the show. Tweet, share, see who's talking. And Mark, as you said, an excellent suggestion, attend the education shows, because the other advantage of that is that it's a non-salesy situation. You can make connections, really great connections with people there, and they could turn out to be your best client ever. It also gives you great follow-up excuses and valuable follow-up to make with them by sending them perhaps other articles on that. There's lots that you can do, but try and hang out there a little bit also when you're having a break or whatever. And
Also,
of
I
course,
think, Ciara, if I can, and you will have seen this, and I'm sure all on the webinar will have seen this as well. There's a growing propensity to put on more and more networking and receptions at these events after the business is done, and it's a great opportunity to to build one-to-one relationships rather than going off for dinner in a restaurant, with your colleagues from the stand and from the booth, which,
yeah.
I know that's a natural thing to do. Go to the end of the afternoon networking receptions with the meeting planners, build the relationship over a glass of wine. It's amazing how many conversations I've had that have led to that planner coming back and seeing me the next day. So it's a little bit like the educational sessions. Go there and and spend some time, because it can really pay dividends.
It really does. It really does. And I was just thinking also, was it Emma's comment about qualified? No, it was Jean in looking at shows and what shows that you're going to, and being very specific. You have an immediate community with IACC, and there's people here who are on this webinar. They're obviously attending trade shows. Connect with them. Ask each other. Share. Don't be afraid to share information of what kind of people you meet, what kind of leads you get, what worked for you, what didn't, all of that kind of stuff. You have so much of that network immediately at your fingertips. Use it, tap into it, connect, share, and help each other out. It's a lot more enjoyable for sure that way. But the number one rule of networking, guys, is not to sell, because nobody goes to a networking event to buy something, right? And it's about making that connection. And if you want to continue the conversation, say, look, I'd love to continue this conversation. Can I get your card? And we'll set up a time so that we can, speak in a less busy environment or whatever that may be. And that is key, to walk away from networking connections with permission to call them and have more time. But try and be specific. Try and set up, look, how about I call you? I'll send you a calendar invite for 2 weeks' time at 2:30, whatever that may be. Try and be specific. Act like a host rather than a guest. If you see someone standing on their own, walk up to them. Even though this is, this industry, and you think everybody is outgoing and an extrovert, they're not. There's an awful lot of introverts in this industry, and in particular on the buyer side, because there's a lot more. You'll see, people in procurement that have come in, people from the finance side that have come into this industry. And if you see somebody, you know, there too, they feel they need to go to this, they're trying to network. If they're looking uncomfortable, walk up to them, because they will probably be washed with a sense of relief. Oh yes, I'm not going to be left standing here all by myself, and act like that host. But of course, also have an excuse and ready to leave the conversation if you need to, okay? Because it has happened that, you know, you get stuck talking to the one person. Have you ever been in that scenario, Mark? It for sure has happened, guys.
It certainly
And you
has
know, a
happened to
good
me. Maybe
you
the
know,
other
a
way,
good
maybe more the other way round. Other people feel that they've got stuck with me though, so I have to, I got it. It swings both ways. I get it.
So, Mark, what are the good excuses you've heard of people trying to escape you? So, what are the good lines?
I couldn't possibly give away those trade secrets, but I could write a book about them.
Okay, we look forward to that book. But a good one is, guys, so that you come across very positive also, is, you know, who are you here to meet? Let me introduce you to somebody. Grab somebody, introduce them to them, and then you can just gently and nice and politely say your goodbye. Okay, so that's a very elegant way to leave a conversation. Both of you are there ultimately to work the room, so to speak, to meet and connect with people. So you're doing them a favor also by agreeing that. But when you're connecting at, you know, whatever step, whether it's you're having a sit down one-to-one conversation, whether you're in a networking event, whether you're at the education event, agree a next step. Try and get that calendar appointment, send them a calendar appointment to meet with you next. Okay, it's key. And of course, after the event, guys, follow up. It's amazing. You know, I think there's a statistic, something like 80% of salespeople either don't follow up or give up after the second go. Yet it can take up to 12 to 13 connections with a client before they're ready to buy, before they are trust you enough, before they're ready to take that step. So of course, follow up, try and follow up in a meaningful way. And of course, do what you said you were going to do. And you know, if you haven't connected with them beforehand, LinkedIn is fabulous. I've warmed up 3 people that I met about 6 months ago at a conference just by reaching out to them on LinkedIn, and now we have appointments set up for next week. So, summary here, guys, look at your questions, the killer questions. As I say, I have a list of 30 questions that I share in my Steps to Win program, which really helps you to carry out conversations that convert, as I call them, and importantly, build bigger and better relationships with your clients. Prepare your answers to questions that they might ask so that it's interesting and you get it out in a very clear, crisp way. And again, it doesn't sound salesy. Try and, you know, drop in there a result that you've achieved for clients or how you've helped them. Know what other events they have run. Social proof testimonials. Prepare your testimonials. Know their industry lingo. Show the personality of your business a little bit. Remember Dawn and the hat. You know, what is it that you can wear also to stand out? Dress with something that distinguishes you. Connect with them now on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever social media forum you feel is appropriate that they are using. Not, you know, LinkedIn, I think, as opposed to Facebook, not unless they're visibly using Facebook for their business and events. And of course, always, always, always agree the next step, because it is about how the client wants to buy as opposed to how you want to sell. And 80% of leads are lost in these 3 steps here. So we want to make sure that we are mastering them in order to get to yes. Building our tools is key in order to help you to get there quicker in this industry. Strategy gives you direction, but tools help you get there quicker. And I have a whole module dedicated to how to build the right kind of sales tools so that you're attracting more of the right kind of qualified leads, more of the right kind of clients that are yours to convert, and you're not frustrated wasting your time meeting with people that are never going to be a client of yours. Remember, clients don't care about your business or your venue, they care about their problems. And the key competitive advantage, guys, is to think like a customer. So, as always, we end our sessions with, what are you going to do different? What is your one thing or your next step that you're going to do? We'd love to hear what you have taken from this session and what you're going to implement, and try that a little bit harder, or carve out a little bit time to in order to do that. So start sharing that with me, guys, in the chat there, so that we can see what was relevant to you. What's your little takeaway? We want to make sure that the last 50 minutes of your life was not a waste, and there's some good stuff that you are walking away with. Is there anything coming up there, Mark?
There's one question that I'd love to pick up, share, and also address and get your thoughts on it as well, because it's one that it's close to my heart. But the question is, large conference centres are traditionally located further from the airport than some of the on airport property conference venues. How do we suggest overcoming this challenge in regards to location to the airport and it being too far? And like I say, it's a familiar one, and I'm really pleased you've asked it. I'm gonna answer it by saying, it's a little bit like the saying, where have a glass of wine, because no great relationship was built over a salad. And it's exactly the same when you consider, no great meetings experience is going to happen at an airport hotel. And our meeting planner community, one of the number one priorities that they have is to create a memorable and impactful event. And if they are a meeting planner that's still using distance as a barrier, i.e. convenience of being at an airport location, you really have got to be talking to them about the importance of creating an experience, about being able to connect with the regional connection of that venue. Maybe it's in a rural setting if it's away from an airport location, and an opportunity to be able to use local produce, local suppliers, and just giving the delegates that opportunity to build their relationships, to have great conversations, which nobody can do in a busy airport hotel, which their reason for being is not to put on great meetings. So hopefully, Jean, that gives you a couple of ideas. But honestly, if I hear that now as a barrier, and from my days as a director of sales and marketing, if I hear that as a barrier, it's like music to my ears, because I can go in bang 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 and point out all of the special differences, that just traveling 15-20 minutes further, all of the great things that they're going to get from their meeting as a result of being brave.
Yeah, and key to that also, Mark, will be, have we really uncovered and tapped into the emotions behind the sale? For us to be able to really turn around and remind them of what they said is most important to the outcome of their event.
Absolutely.
And I'll share a story with you by Coca-Cola. They used to run let's take the general managers of all their manufacturing companies around the world. They're different businesses, right? A friend of mine, Paddy, happens to be called Paddy, from Ireland, but he was head of Coca-Cola in Canada, right? And they traditionally always had their big strategy meetings at airport properties, because the people flying in from Japan, America, Europe, all over South America, and they wanted to make it easy for people. But Paddy decided it was his turn to choose a venue and to organize it in his territory. He wanted to bring it to Ireland. And he loves golf. So he said, you know what, I'm going to organize it on a golf course. And he took a little bit of a risk, but it seriously paid off for him. He chose a venue that was about 2.5 hours from the closest airport, whether it was Belfast or Dublin Airport. Everybody arrived in. There was a little bit of a rumble at the beginning. He said, why did you bring us the whole way here, Paddy? But by the next day, everybody was like, wow, this is the best strategy meeting that we have ever been at. They had their top thinkers, their top people in the business in this venue for 4 days, okay? And it was serious meetings, a fun, a bit of golf, a lot of networking. They came out with the best ideas. They had guys relax quicker, get into the event, share ideas, share what worked in their plant, share the problems that they had, share how they overcame them. And from then on, the bar was set as to where they were going to have their next event. Okay. And it was no longer going to be cooped up in a boring airport hotel. So tell stories, guys. That can be a very, very effective way to overcome these kind of objections, because what you're hearing sometimes from a planner is not their immediate concern. Their boss is going to say that to them, or somebody else on the committee is going to say that to them. So you need to give them wonderful ammunition that they can turn around and assure somebody else as to why they're going to overcome that, as to why this is the right choice. It's rare that you're speaking to the only decision maker, correct? So you need to be able to give them a really good story and an answer to that, that's to say to their boss or their committee or whatever that may be. And I have another one, the Junior Chamber International. This is when I was a venue finder, guys. Derek called me up and he said, look, Ciara, we're organising this for the first time. First time coming to Ireland, first time for me organising this. Really need to make an impression. I want to bring it to X city, and it needs to be downtown. And this is the hotel that I have in mind. Okay, I obviously knew him. So I said, wow, Derek, you're making my job very easy. Thank you very much. But let me ask you a few key questions. I need to understand the attendees. I need to understand the conference a little bit more so that I can figure out and help you to make sure we're getting this key strategic venue decision right. So I asked him, tell me, what, if anything, would you change about last year's event? And I knew he hadn't organised it. And he said, you know what? He had to think about it for a minute, but he said, you know what, Ciara? When I think about it, it was held in another city, a very popular city. And when everybody checked in, they immediately left. They headed out downtown to the local bars, to a restaurant, and everybody was spread out and gone in 10 different directions. And that wasn't what they wanted to achieve. So I asked him, okay, great. Another question. Tell me this, so Derek, what is the number one objective that you need to achieve from organizing this event? And he had to think about this, Mark. He didn't have a straight answer, which you will find not every planner does. But he said, you know what? It's networking, Ciara. This is our only chance that we're getting everybody from Europe together once a year. We really need people to be sharing ideas, sharing stories, connecting, so that if they are making contacts, that they can feel free to call somebody if they have an issue, if they have a problem, if they want to run something past somebody. That is a really key strategic objective from this event. So I said, okay, I said, just to let you know, the venues that you have chosen, you will not achieve that objective with holding them there, because people will check in and they'll be gone out the door again in 10 different directions. May I suggest somewhere that was outside the city a little bit, still easy enough to get to, but hard enough to have to get a taxi and go downtown, And I followed the event on social media, and it was, very popular. There was a lot of people tweeting. Everybody looked like they were having fun. He called me that Monday, and he said, Ciara, this has raised the bar for all of our meetings, because nobody left. Everybody stayed at the venue. We thought on the Saturday night after the award ceremony, we heard a rumor that one or two people might go downtown to the pubs, but they didn't. Everybody stayed. So again, that changed the way that they run their meetings from now on.
Ciara, that's great advice, and I tell you, I can't believe it, but we've actually come to the top of the hour, and so where's that last 60 minutes gone? But we really do appreciate it. We have no more questions from the group. That was a really good one to address at the end, but happy to wrap up now, and then just have a few words to close when you're ready.
Absolutely, Mark. Well, I think a lot of these also will help with your conference coming up in April, right? Because there's going to be some planners attending that also.
There certainly will. We're hoping for over 100 in Philadelphia. So, for those of you who are not already booked for IAC Connect in Philadelphia, we will be having a whole afternoon dedicated to engaging with meeting planners, hearing their pain, hearing what's important to them, and building those connections. So, you can put these skills that Ciara has given you for trade shows, definitely put them to good use when you're engaging and rubbing shoulders with the meeting planners with us in under 2 months' time. That's a good reminder.
Yeah, yeah. Cool,
Okay.
cool.
Well, Ciara, thank you, for an incredibly insightful session. As mentioned in the opening, we've recorded this webinar, so within the next hour, it will be on IAC's YouTube channel. You can also go in and have a look at our weekly sales tips, which are being shared by our colleague Cindy Novotny. So have a look at those, just a minute or so to throw some tips out there to help you do better business and have more meaningful sales conversations. Our next session is Wednesday, the 7th of March, how to negotiate when dealing with third parties. So another powerful topic there for you to join us. All IAC members can join the webinars now without cost in 2018. So we hope we're delivering more and more value for your membership. We look forward to welcoming you to another session. Ciara, thank you for your time today, and we wish everybody a hugely productive week.
Thanks a million, everybody. Take care.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.